The National Defense Authorization Act has been passed in the House and already generating controversy because it contains many culture war issues. But the big push is now coming from the Senate side, where senators are pushing for women to be drafted. Okay. Senators push selective service registration for women in National Defense Authorization Act. And we have the major highlights here from the This is the United States Senate Committee on Armed Services for the fiscal year 2025. The executive summary published June 2024. Ladies, I hope you are ready to be drafted. Now, of course, this news is a little early. Okay, the House has passed the NDAA. The Senate will have to pass theirs. We don't know if this will actually happen. They try all the time. They tried almost 10 years ago to make it so that women must be drafted. And it failed every step of the way. Why? Because feminist voters, Democrat women, will never vote to send themselves to war. But oh boy, do I have some reactions for you. Now, the funny thing with all this, it shows you the pure interests. The overwhelming majority of men right now probably would not vote for the draft. Why? Well, the system is completely broken. We are not fighting for some great patriotic cause. It's international conquest, American hegemonic power. It is oil conflict. Not too many people are revved up to defend the international financial machine, unfortunately. But here at home, one of the big problems is feminism. If you were to say right now that we'd have a vote on the draft, should men be drafted? Men are going to vote no. Many women are probably going to vote no as well because they don't want to be drafted. And they know if they ask for equality, they get drafted too. And so here we are. Guys are going to say, so long as women don't get drafted, why should we? You want equality? This is the game we will play. Now, I, on the other hand, think everyone should be drafted. I'm going to pause for dramatic effect. I'm going to let people clip that out of context before I actually explain my position. Okay, now that the rage has percolated all over the internet, what I actually mean is not that everyone should be drafted. I don't like the draft. But in a country of patriots, with real issues at play, with a functioning culture and government, drafts would only be necessary for the actual national interest, which means if we're being invaded, not that we're going to draft people and send them to Vietnam. That's insane. No, but if China invaded California, then let's draft, baby, because we're here to defend our country. But we don't have a country right now. This country is in shambles. There's corrupt elements at the highest level. It's political lawfare. It's cold civil war. It's whatever you want to call it. Ain't nobody going to be fighting for anybody else. So for the time being, system don't work. My ideal system actually would be, and actually I shouldn't say ideal, but my vision is if we only allow people to vote if they've signed up for selective service voluntarily. I like the idea. The way it would work is you don't have to sign up for the draft. You are free to live your life. You have free speech. You have Second Amendment. You have all your constitutional rights, but you can't vote. No voting for you unless you choose to sign up for selective service, which means when the time comes, you could be drafted. I'm not saying you will be drafted. I'm saying you say, I am willing to be drafted. That's it. That's it. Only those who are willing to fight and die for their country should have the right to vote. And some argue taxpayers and things like that. Well, I don't know. There's a lot we could talk about there. But let's do this. Let's first read the news. Let me read you the provision. And then I want to show you the reactions to the previous attempt at drafting women. Because I got to tell you, there are a lot of clueless women out there. Oh boy, you are going to enjoy this. My friends, you will be thoroughly entertained. When you hear these TikTok videos of these women talking about what they think the draft means for them. Here we go from Must Read Alaska. This is interesting because it's not really picking up a lot of steam right now. This news story, I'm surprised it's not everywhere. Senators push the draft for women. Since its creation by Congress in 1917, the U.S. Selective Service has registered all men ages 18 to 25, but the National Defense Authorization Act that has passed from the Senate Armed Services Committee and is heading to the Senate floor has what has become a perennial proposal, adding women to the draft list requirement. I want to stress, my friends, drafting someone doesn't mean frontline infantry combat. Women can do administrative work. We can draft all the women and have them work as chefs in the kitchen to feed the men. They can be janitors. They can take out the garbage for us. I'm being a little bit hyperbolic and a little bit facetious. Women can do intelligence work. They can do cybersecurity. They don't have to be running around carrying heavy equipment. They can do many supporting roles and cybersecurity roles. That's true, joking aside. The NDAA authorizes funding levels and provides authorities for the U.S. military and other critical defense priorities. On June 13th, the Senate Armed Services Committee voted 22-3 to advance the NDAA for fiscal year 2025, a proposal that would award $923.3 billion in taxpayer funds for the national defense. The legislation authorizes $878.4 billion for the Department of Defense and $33.4 billion for national security programs within the Department of Energy. The Pentagon has not drafted anyone since the Vietnam War, and there is no current movement to create a draft. Not true, by the way. The current armed forces for the country is made up of volunteered service members. But we are seeing a major decline in voluntary enlistment. Numbers are down. People are unhappy. And so here we are. I imagine the only reason they really want to draft women is because they got to get those numbers up. And in the event we are facing a shortfall in major war, this is what you may get. Stripes.com says House passes defense bill targeting abortion access, transgender troops, and diversity. This is the House side. It's already passed. So we will see what happens with the Senate side of things and how these will come together. But this, my friends, I have it here for you. Armed Services Fiscal Year 2025, the National Defense Authorization Act. And you know what I love? Back in 2012, the NDAA included what was called the indefinite detention provision, that the act to be passed by Congress would allow for the extrajudicial rendition of anyone in the world. That's right. The NDAA indefinite detention provision would allow, and I don't think it's really fair to say allow, but they would assert the authority to arrest anyone, anywhere, for any reason, and hold them wherever they want. That would mean that you could be sitting in your bed watching Alex Jones, and the door kicks open, and a bunch of black masked dudes with guns and military equipment black bag you, throw you in a van, drive you to a boat, take you to an offshore rig where they mercilessly beat you and no one knows what happened to you. That was in the NDAA. It motivated very few. There were no big outcries against Obama's corruption. There were no big outcries over the corruption of Congress. But now here we are. By adding women to the draft, you are going to see a hailstorm of rejection. You are going to see fury, and they're going to lie. They're going to say, well, I just think the draft is wrong. Yeah, right. If they came out, and they do come out every year and say men can be drafted, ain't no feminists coming out and opposing it. Maybe one or two, but not the majority. They're only complaining because now it targets them and they need an excuse. In fact, Democrats put forward a bill that would automatically register men for the selective service, and that passed. I don't see feminists marching in the street saying stop drafting men. No, because they get free stuff and they don't got to do nothing for it. I reject that. Equality or not. You want to vote? Women got to sign up for the draft, same as men. Ain't no way I'm playing this game where you can say there are second-class citizens in this country. Men should not have to die for female politicians who don't have to if they're claiming we are all equal. You put the same skin in the game as everyone else, or you reject whatever privileges you might think you deserve. I think it's fair to say anyone can vote. I don't care who you are. Man, woman, black, white, trans, whatever. But you got to have the same skin in the game. Okay, that means when they passed the 19th Amendment, this is one of the big complaints, granting women the right to vote, they did not give them equal responsibility. Meaning, men still have to fight and die in wars, and women don't, but both get to vote. This will create a pressure system in favor of war, and it's exactly what we've gotten. Because now women are going to be like, I'm not fighting in the war. I love when Hillary Clinton was like, women are the true victims of war. Their husbands, fathers, and brothers die. It's like, oh, I would have thought the people who died were the victims. But thanks, Hillary. Here's the PDF. The preface. Each year, the National Defense Authorization Act authorizes funding levels and provides authorities for the United States military and other critical defense priorities, ensuring America's forces have the blah, 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 blah. You get it. Also, there's a weird texting issue. What's up with this? Formatting issue. Major highlights. Equipping the force for long-term strategic competition. Don't care. Modernizing the future battlefield. Don't care. 3. strengthening the joint force and defense workforce. Okay. Well, what have we here? Authorizes funding to support 4.5% pay raise for military members and a 2% pay raise for DOD civilian employees. Absolutely for it. Absolutely for it. DOD, I don't like as much. Giving a pay raise to our men and women in uniform, if you were to ask me, we should be giving them more money. People who serve this country, I want to stress this, especially, we just had the D-Day memorial. The men and women in uniform of this country are the ones who are actually doing the work so that these whiny, whinging feminists can complain all day and do nothing. Okay? The only reason I'm able to sit here and whinge on the internet for large sums of money is because the men and women in uniform are doing the hard work to make sure we can. Facts. That doesn't mean I like what the political leaders and the civilian leaders are doing or how they're commanding them. But what you have with the military is, it's a mix. I never like to play this game of they're heroes. A lot of them are heroes. Some of them just wanted a job. That's true. There's a lot of people who said, look, I don't know where to go for work, and here's the job they're offering me, and I can take it. And so I did. But I still tell you this. The person who decided to take a job in the Army, Navy, Marines, Air Force, whatever, even if it wasn't out of some selfless act, they are still doing a job that allows you and I to sit here in comfy chairs, complaining on the internet or watching videos on the internet, eating our nacho cheese and getting fat, for better or for worse. I got to hand it to military service members. I say give them a pay raise. I agree with that. Give them even more than that. Here's the amendment. It says, Section 3, third line, amends the Military Selective Service Act to require the registration of women for selective service. I clap and I cheer. I say yes. Women got to be drafted. Ladies, welcome to equality. The door is open. Walk on through. I got roles for you. Cybersecurity, legit. Logistics, okay? I don't know, air traffic control. There's a bunch of stuff that is non-combat. You don't need to be on the front lines running full speed, carrying heavy bags, but you can be doing work and you should be involved. So there it is, right? Here we go. Anthony Dale says he was willing to use deadly force over it to prevent his daughter from being compelled to serve. Well, I don't know who this guy is, but I disagree, and I think that is way wrong. This guy looks like a conservative, and he says he's a husband, father, pro-strongman, bodybuilder, Christ is king. I say anyone, male or female, can serve. I do not think women should be on the front lines in combat. They can be in, I think that there are roles in, let's say we've got, first of all, I don't care for foreign incursions. Like, I'm not going to make any claims about Iraq, Afghanistan, Syria, whatever. I don't think we should be there. In the United States, were we to be attacked, there's plenty of roles for women doing logistics and administrative work to help facilitate our military. I got no problem with that. When it comes time for war, there are things women can do to help in that war. They could be drafted, and then they work in a factory, a normal factory job with minor automation, and they're helping produce things. They did that in World War II. They can do that again. I got no problem with that. But the alternative would be, instead of saying something extreme about defending your daughters, how about we just say, you don't get to vote unless you agree that you have to serve? How's that? I signed up for selective service. Most of you did too. We've not been drafted, but we did. Now, they told us we had to or else, fine. Now, we have this from Fox News. House passes defense bill automatically registering men 18 to 26 for the draft. They're gearing up, dude. I hope y'all are ready. They are gearing up. All right. Now, I want to stress that they've tried this before. This is from the selectiveservice.gov, the selective service system. And they mentioned back in 2016 they wanted to do this. It was a big controversy. Women lost their collective minds. And then Democrats were like, we are going to lose way too many voters if you do this. They're going to vote Green Party. Don't do it. Well, so here you go. Should women be in the draft? We have this one from Sachs Media. And they say the poll conducted found 59% of Americans believe women should be included in the draft. Only 38% think they should not. Support for drafting women was strongest among Democrats, women, and 18 to 34-year-olds. I want to stress that. Drafting women is strongest among liberals. Oh, you know what I'm most excited for? When World War III finally erupts, like we may be in it already, but like let's just say they're officially in the papers like it's World War III, it's happened. I'm really excited for when they draft Harry Sisson If you don't know who he is, he's like this 21-year-old mega Democrat. And he is the perfect age for the draft, right? Because we're talking about in the next 4 years or so, things could really kick off. And, they draft between 18 to 26 first. So it's going to be funny when they draft him, stick a camera, a GoPro, and it's going to be just like Edge of Tomorrow with Tom Cruise. And, that in that movie, he's a PR guy. And they said, we want you on the front lines with a camera. And it's like, me? But I'm an officer. I don't do that. And they were like, too bad. And then he resists. And it's kind of silly. They like strip him of his rank and stuff. But that's what's going to happen to Harry. They're going to be like, hey, man, you're the poster child. We need you to convince people. So you're the one going into combat. Hey, I don't even know that he ends up hating it. He might love it. They'll keep him safe. He's a good propaganda tool. Here we go, ladies and gentlemen, from TikTok. Here's a lady saying, what I'm most excited about if women get drafted. So this is from the Lady J, who is commenting on it, but I want to play this video.
If women are drafted to the military, I am most excited to see the confrontation between commanding officers and the girls.
Between commanding officers and the girls? Oh, dear.
You think we're going to let you yell at us? You think we're going to do something without a please and thank you?
Please allow me to introduce a little reality into this situation, because personnel in the military are under legal obligation to follow all lawful orders that they are given. And a please and a thank you are not required.
We've all had controlling ex-boyfriends. We know not to put up with that bullshit.
It's almost as if they're not understanding that it's not just men that are in positions of authority in the military.
Yep.
Like, let's sit down and have a conversation about what you want and what I want, and we'll reach a happy medium. Because there's no way I'm doing what you want when you use that tone with me. You think you can push us around like you do with these men? Think again, baby. You're gonna learn some manners.
And I think one would learn very quickly that having a bad attitude and obvious problems with people in positions of authority wouldn't get one very far. But most importantly, the Uniform Code of Military Justice doesn't play.
Yo, that lady is going to get drafted, and they're going to be like, yeah, here we go, training time. Now, I got to be honest with you. I know a lot of people who are in the military, and the stories I hear is that a lot of women in basic training get away with this stuff. However, in wartime, I kind of feel like they'd be like, out of my face. And more importantly, as Lady J points out, it's not just men. This lady's like, you think we're going to take it from men? No, they're going to have a female officer, and she's going to be screaming at you. Do it or else. And they'll lock you up if you don't listen. That being said, I've heard way too many stories from guys where they're like, I was in basic, and the women started crying, and so they let the women go. I've heard stories where, like, the guys, when they're in basic, you can't wash your PTs, you can't wash your uniform, whatever. I'm not a military guy, I don't know the exact terminology. But it's like, you're filthy, you're dirty, hang it up, wake up, get back to it. You're going through your basic training. Women, however, legally are required to be able to clean themselves and take showers, well, because of hygiene issues. And I've heard way too many stories. I'm sure it's not the case for every single woman, but I've heard stories of women who start crying and stop and then refuse to carry their bags, and then they give them rides. So it ain't all wrong, but my point is, when it comes to a draft, when they're like, listen, existential crisis, war is now, I don't see them playing. Here we go. Here's another one. I love this one the most.
If you think men and women are equal, then you think women should be drafted, right? No, I don't think women should be drafted, and I don't think men should be drafted either. Who's gonna fight the war then? Nobody. I don't think we should have wars. And before you're like, oh, that is so stupid, like, I really truly believe it is never deep enough to have a war. I think war is immature. I think we should start talking to each other like adults. And I feel like if you are a world leader who is upset about, for example, like the border of your country, and you can't come to a civil agreement, you shouldn't be in charge of a country. If somebody needs to get shot over that, you are not good at your job. I think if we all just grow up and decide, hey, we should stop having wars, things would go a lot better. Nobody wants to get shot, and yet we're still shooting. Let's not do that. Oh, I want oil from the Middle East. Ask nicely. If they say no, just accept their no instead of being a huge baby about it. Oh my god, I think this entire group of people should be wiped off the face of the earth. Eat a snack. Take a beach vacation. Go to therapy and learn how to mind your own business. They do not need to die. That's never gone well. Stop. Grow up.
So, I know immediately in response to this one, it was kind of hard to hear, it's quiet. I'm going to get a wave of comments saying repeal the 19th. Lady, young lady, ma'am, nobody wants war. Now, there are warmongers who make money off it. We can all agree on that. But there is not a reality circumstance where someone has decided to go to war for fun. That's just not how it works. The guys who fight the wars overwhelmingly try to avoid them. Massive corporations love selling weapons. That's a problem. That ain't politicians. A lot of politicians serving them through lobby money. Oof, we got a big problem here. But let me just say, if you think that you have a problem with your country's border, you shouldn't be, and someone needs to be shot over it, then you shouldn't be president. You shouldn't be in charge of that country. Wow. Where to begin? Ukraine. Oh, I got an idea, lady. Here's one. Palestine. You got a problem with the borders of Gaza? Well, if you got a problem with that, you shouldn't be in charge of your country because they went and they shot people. This lady basically said Hamas is bad. Agreed. How about Ukraine? The United States and Russia, NATO forces, Western forces, fighting for control of Ukraine's corrupt and weak government. Russia needs access to Crimea and are being pushed out, so they decided to take it. There is no simple, we just shouldn't have war. It's like saying, imagine this. All things conflict. Let's start from the bottom. The most rudimentary and simple form of conflict. You go to a McDonald's and you say, I would like a Big Mac, but I don't want any Mac sauce on it. Okay, which is kind of weird because why would you get it anyway? And they give you the Big Mac. You say, thank you. You sit down, open it up, and heavens be, there's Mac sauce all over it. Hey, but you paid. You gave money. Lowest form of conflict. So you walk up and say, hey, look, I can't have this. I'm allergic to something in it, and I paid $10 for it. Can you fix it? And they go, no. And you say, well, I paid you money. And they say, we're not going to fix it for you. What do you do? See, this is the problem. Rudimentary conflict is someone is slighted in some way, and we need to figure out how to solve for this. Ain't nobody going to care about one Big Mac, right? It's rudimentary conflict. But let's say you scale this up. Let's go nation state level. Let's say McDonald's said, no, you are wrong. You never asked for no Mac sauce. And now we're not going to eat the costs of making another burger and losing money because you forgot to ask. I did ask. Well, now you're in dispute, right? But that's just a Big Mac. Now you're at the highest level. Hey, we had a treaty. We agreed that we would allow certain products to be shipped through these lanes, but never did we allow you to put armed guards along the edge of it because this is causing us problems and a jurisdictional crisis. And they said, no. How are we supposed to transport these goods without our armed guards? We are severing this treaty. If this treaty goes, then you're asking for conflict because we are not giving up this trade route. We need access to this food to bring fuel in to our town, or if we don't have it, they're not going to be able to produce the crops they need, use the machinery, and we will reach starvation levels in a year and a half. You are not shutting down this trade route. Well, we're not going to allow you to have armed men. Do something about it. How do you resolve that conflict? Yeah, sure, you can talk about it. But then you get issues that escalate and escalate. Or let's just look at Ukraine. Russia is charging a lot of money for natural gas through Ukraine. And the U.S. says, you're overcharging us. Stop. And they said, the market is the market is. The U.S. says, we will do whatever we have to make sure the European economic bloc will expand because we will not allow China to overtake our economy. We're already having a crisis where China's expanding in the South China Sea. Russia says, we ain't going to do anything for you. So the U.S. says, we'll build a pipeline through Syria. Syria says, not happening. We're with Russia. So the U.S. says, if we don't get natural gas into Europe at cheap rates, their economy will stagnate, growth will stagnate, China will become the global dominant economy, and then we will live under Chinese communism. And they don't agree with what this young lady thinks. Not that I'm justifying anything they do. I'm pointing out everyone else has some justification for why the escalation happens. And it really can often come down to, if we don't, we die. You want to talk about why there should not be war. There are two guys standing 100 yards apart, and right at the 50-yard line is a piece of bread. Both men are starving. There's only enough bread for one man. There's no reality where it's like, when it comes to life or death, you know what? I'll make it even better for you. Ma'am, I will make it very simple for you. We run out of medicine, particularly antibiotics. A shortage is caused by an ecological disaster. There is a catastrophe, a hurricane destroys a local plant, and we are unable to produce the amount of antibiotics we need to meet demand. People are going into stores, and they're saying, look, I'm sorry, we are out of our antibiotics. Please just be careful, use antiseptics, don't get infections. One day, a man and his wife, she's pregnant, by the way, with twins, no less, 8 months. And she is walking outside and something scrapes her leg. She doesn't think much of it. A few days later, she's experiencing an infection. Well, I don't know if it's a good example. I don't know what you're supposed to do if you're pregnant and you have antibiotics. But let's just say a man's wife, okay, and she gets an infection. The man knows the neighbor across the street has extra antibiotics that were unused, and he needs them. He goes to that guy's house, and he knocks and says, my wife is septic. She will die unless she gets antibiotics. I know you have some. Please, you have enough to save her life. And the man says, I am not going to give up the little bit of antibiotics I have because my family needs it too. Welcome to war. Ain't nobody going to let their wife die. He's going to say, don't make me take it from you because I will not let my wife die. You scale that up to the nation level and it's not, you just, welcome to reality, lady. Keep voting, though. Keep voting. I mean it, because she will vote against war, I hope. I love this one. This lady's good. Here you go. You ready for this one?
Find all of these criminals. I will find out their cells, where they are, who they know, who they dated, who they don't date, where they had their last meal. I will find it. Also, did we ever consider the fact that women will all sync and our periods will be at the same time, so we will PMS at the same time, which means the rage that will get unleashed on a battlefield when you have a bunch of menstruating women. God bless. And finally.
Okay. The first point she was making is that women can do intelligence work. I'll give her that one. The second one, that women will all be on their periods, and so they will be enraged. Okay. Rage is not a good thing in conflict. You need to remain calm. So if you have a guy who is cool and collected and thinking, and a bunch of women are just freaking out because they're on their periods, as what this woman is saying, it's not going to end well. But I also asked, there's a viral video from like 5 to 8 months ago or whatever of this guy completely untrained fighting a woman with 10 years of karate experience, and he just beats her up. A lot of people are pointing out that he was holding back, and he was. I'm sorry, dude. Women in combat, guns help, but you are not going to be able to compete effectively with dudes. I mean, more bone density, more muscle mass, more collagen. They're carrying more ammo, more weapons. Sorry. Make as many dumb jokes as you want. The reality is the draft is coming for y'all. And the real job that women can do in the draft, I have no problem with. There are guys saying they shouldn't serve, and I'm like, women can serve in the military. What do you mean? They can make uniforms. They can cook food. They can file paperwork for administrative tasks. They can fix computers. They can work domestically. They don't need to go to the front line. They can do domestic work. Women can serve their communities. So I say this. My proposal is if you want to vote, you got to sign up for selective service, but you don't have to. You can choose not to, and you will never be drafted. But only those who do will get to vote. Why? The majority of women will refuse to sign up and say, I don't want to be drafted. The majority of Democrat, liberal, weak men will say, I don't want to be drafted either. And conservative guys and patriots will all say, and women, I have no problem signing a pledge to serve my country when my country needs me. And that means the only people who are voting are the people who have signed that pledge. It will not be all conservative. But I tell you this, it will not be very liberal at all. Next segment's coming up at 4 p.m. on this channel. Thanks for hanging out, and I'll see you all then.